1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get punked, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in they Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters gon' move, whatever click you choose.
Say, what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to Life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system, man. Yeah, that's me gassing on that intro. If you want to get that song, it's available for purchase from me only on a digital download. I also got 2 other mixtapes, one with 16 songs, one with 13 songs. If you're interested, hit me up on my email, 16tolifemusic@gmail.com, Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle me $20, and I'm going to get it to you ASAP, man. Now let's hop right up into today's video. So I did a video earlier, and I saw a comment in my comment section from Larry610. Shout out to Larry610. He asked me a good question. He asked me, Chill, have you ever been disciplined during the course of your incarceration, right, during your 24-year period? So I thought that was a pretty good question for me to do a video on. So I'm going to get into that today, right now. For those of you guys who may not understand what a discipline is or how it works among the Crips and the Bloods and other blacks who I've served time with, in my experience, I'm going to break it down for you guys right now. A discipline or a DP is something that is inflicted on you, particularly by your car or by your race, when you have done something or created a situation that is potentially harmful to your car or your race, or you have done something that your car or your race has agreed that it's a situation that needs to be rectified, right? Now, there are different avenues to travel down when an individual has deemed eligible or necessary to receive a DP, right? Sometimes, depending on what it was, you may just get a talking to, right? That still could be a DP. You know, your homies having a meeting on you. They call it a meeting, and a meeting is pretty much all the individuals who participate in your car, because like I said, for the most part, most Crips and Bloods do not necessarily have one particular shot caller. At times they may, but more times than not, they may have a couple of individuals who have been doing time, who know and understand prison protocol, and their voice may carry a little bit more weight than other individuals. But at times in that situation, sometimes it also just comes down to a vote, right? Sometimes not. Sometimes, you know, the voice of reason in that situation wins out, and a lot of times it is what is in, I would say, what coincides with what's known to be prison protocol, right? And so sometimes it may just cats be talking to you, right? But a lot of times it may be more than that, right? Now, depending on, once again, how severe the nature of your charges were, the disciplinary actions could be different, right? Sometimes you may see it, it may be physical, right? When I say physical, I mean like a physical exercise, right? So sometimes you may have to run 8 laps or 10 laps. I've seen people be disciplined with laps. Homie, you messed up, you did something, you have to run laps. Sometimes it may be burpees, right? You have to come out here and do 300 burpees, or each day you may have to come out here and do 300 burpees a day, you know, or you may have to just do burpees the whole entire yard. it all depends on whatever your particular car decides, right? Sometimes it might be push-ups. When I first came to prison, because I came to prison in 96 when you had a lot of the older individuals who had started doing time, possibly in the mid 80s, late 80s, they were still there. And so sometimes they fell up under a different type of thinking, right? Sometimes you might have to write an essay. You might have to write an essay and a physical punishment in terms of some burpees, right? So let me break down the reason for the essay, right? And I've heard a lot of older cats talk about this. I didn't hear dudes writing essays for physical discipline much after the 2000s, right? But so how it was explained to me when I would talk to older individuals, that writing an essay came into play because what you did was potentially a situation that could create a wreck among those who you function with, whether it's your race or your car. And so the essay, the main purpose of having to write an essay, to my understanding, was to make sure you understood exactly what it was you done. So in the event it was to happen again, you could have no basically reason to say I did not know. Maybe in that essay you had to cover several things about your conduct, about being respectful, make sure you understand what was ever, expected of you, right? And so that was the whole purpose of an essay, right? And then sometimes too, it can get physical where dudes will assault you, right? And now after you get assaulted, once again, it's all about the nature of what it was you done in the first place. After you get assaulted, you may be forced to leave or you may be allowed to stay, whatever your particular car, once again, deemed was appropriate, right? For you, right? And so, you can get now some individuals may wonder, well, what might constitute a discipline or a DP in prison, right? Well, it could be a plethora of things, right? You could go into debt, out there gambling and do not have the means to pay, or you purchase a product from somebody and you did not have any way of paying the individual, right? You could be you could have been disrespectful, right? You could have possibly done something that potentially would pit your car against another person, and your car decided that in doing that you was in the wrong. You almost got your car in a wreck, because if your homies see you out there on the yard and you function with a particular car and then they happen to recognize another car suddenly just over there assaulting you, your homie is going to run to aid you. Then a melee or a riot is going to kick off depending on how many people is involved. You have a lot of people going to the hole. Once you get back to the hole, of course, people are going to want to know, hey, man, what was that about? You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting up in the hole. I had a family visit coming up this weekend. I had a visit coming up this weekend, whatever the case may be. Right. And so once they sort everything out, if they feel, okay, homie, you was wrong, you know what I'm saying? Then there comes the discipline. Right. And then once again, like I said, depending on what your car decide, when they do discipline you, you may be allowed to stay. You may not. It all just depends, right? I've seen, dudes get disciplined for a lot of things. Like I said, man, some dudes go get tattoos, gang-related tattoos, and cross out other people's hood while in prison. Now, of course, when I came to prison in 96, I like to call that the era of traditional gang banging, when a lot of times this stuff was going on, right? But people felt insulted if you had those type of tattoos on you, period, right? But if they knew you not to have a certain type of disrespectful tattoo on you one day, then the next day you pop up with a fresh tattoo that's disrespecting another gang. The sentiment then is, okay, this dude is tripping, you set tripping, you gang banging, because for the most part, the black gangs in prison try to let what happened on the street remain on the street. So it all just depends, right, on whatever the situation is, right? Are you allowed to fight back on a DP? Well, of course, you better. I mean, most individuals do fight back. I mean, it's only natural to try to protect yourself. But a lot of times when you are summoned for a DP, or it is decided that you're going to have a DP, they will send several individuals on you to make sure that even if you try to fight back, you're going to lose, because the whole purpose of the DP is to be assaulted, to and also to be taught a physical lesson, right? And so I told you guys one time in a story, I believe it's my most popular story. The name of that story is "You Might Be Deaf, But We Don't Care." And we had an individual who was a part of my car who was accused of man-on-man relationships in prison. You know, he liked to satisfy individuals with the instrument God gave him to talk with, if that's clear to you guys. So anyway, man, when I hit SAT-F, which was a level 2, right? Some dudes told me that this individual had got ran off from another prison for doing what I just described, right? And he was accused of doing it there again, right? So my whole thing, for one, is, okay, I'm just now getting here. If this individual was running around doing this stuff, why haven't you guys took care of it? Now that I'm here, I haven't seen him do it, so I'm not going to just jump off rumors. And so if, you know, he hasn't done it, so I'm going to go address him. So I went and I addressed him. Now, the individual was deaf. His name was Derek, right? And it's crazy because I ran across another deaf dude and his name was Derek, 2 separate people. They just happened to have the same name, right? The other deaf Derek was in Ironwood, right? So anyway, this other dude, Derek, I take a notebook over there, because now in that particular prison, they had individuals who could do sign language, and actually that was their job, to help communicate to the deaf. But common sense told me, communicate with the deaf. But common sense told me that if this dude is, you know what I'm saying, doing what he should not be doing, he's not going to admit it. So I'm hoping that maybe this personal conversation, I can, my intention is not necessarily to get the dude to admit it. My intention is just to let this dude know that, hey, man, these are what these dudes are saying. And if it is proven to be true, you gonna get your head whooped, right? So I sit there for a long time writing him letters. I'd write something. Hey, man, they say you're doing this on the notebook. He'd look at it. They lie. Then he'd scribble something back and this and that. And so the main problem was this. Due to the dude being deaf, in my opinion, he felt a overwhelming sense of to try to fit in. And in trying to fit in, even though he wasn't a gang member, he would hang with the Crips and Bloods. He'd be over there in the circle with them, smoking their cigarettes, smoking whatever else they had to smoke. If they made wine, he'd be drinking wine out of their cups. Somebody make a burrito, he'd ask for a bite. And it seemed like he would do a lot of this just to want to feel accepted. If he'd make burritos, he'd let people eat out of his bowl and things of that nature. And so when this stuff comes up, everybody does not want to share a cigarette, a burrito, or a drinking cup with an individual like that, right? And so I'm telling him all these things in these letters, right? He's steady. No, never. So he's saying he would never do nothing like that, so on and so forth, right? Okay, cool. So, because somebody claimed they had seen him late at night with some covers up over his bed, on the bed of a paisa, right? And so it was suspicious activity. Long story short, maybe a week or two after I write him these letters, somebody catches him in the kitchen doing this stuff, right? And so now, of course, he has to go, right? And so I went and told 2 of my younger homies to go handle this dude, right? And they went over there and did that. Even though I didn't really honestly touch the dude, once they whooped on him, he lied. He went to the police. He told the police we all jumped him and we all, got rolled up, found guilty, so on and so forth. That's one reason, right? Now, when I originally told that story, that was one of my first stories. Some people in the comments were mad at me, right? And what they was trying to do, in my opinion, was give me free world solutions to solve a incarcerated world problem. The dude was not attacked because he liked to unzip the zipper of other individuals. This dude was attacked because he was dishonest about it, and it was pretty much under deception. Like I say, once again, dudes do not want to drink, smoke cigarettes, eat, eat out of the same bowls and so on as a dude who loves to do that, right? And so that's why that occurred to that individual. I told a story about a partner of mine, man, a Damu from San Diego. I cannot right now, for the life of me, remember that story, right? But pretty much this is what happened. Now, when you hit, this was in Ironwood, when you hit a sale, right? Regardless of what bunk you're assigned to, top or the bottom, if you are assigned to the bottom and you get up in there and somebody is already in there, he's going to be on the bottom bunk. He has been waiting for that sale. He has been waiting for his cellie to leave. And so now the custom is you have to get on the top bunk, even though you may be assigned to the bottom bunk. So this was the situation, right? You had an individual who was you had an individual. These was bloods. You had an individual who was assigned to the top bunk, but he was sleeping on the bottom bunk and vice versa. So now when the guard is going by for count, you got old freaky dude from Dago exposing himself to the female guard. So initially she wrote him up a warning, right? And so the dude on the bottom of the bunk, Fat Mac was from no, he was not from 2Ps. Was Fat Mac from PDL? I think Fat Mac was from PDL, if my memory serves me correct. Let's make no mistake. Fat Mac was not the culprit, right? It was his cellie. So Fat Mac one day receives this 128, which is basically a warning for exposing himself to the female during count. Now, Fat Mac is tripping. Of course, we find this out later on. Like, man, what is they talking about? I ain't been exposing myself to this guard. What the heck is they talking about, right? A week or two later, Fat Mac then gets a write-up. He gets a 115. The 115 says, once again, he has exposed himself to this guard, and because the same lady would count at night, and she had warned him, and he continued to, engage in this freaky deaky behavior. Fat Mac is like, man, what the hell is going on? I ain't been, what is he tripping on? So when Fat Mac goes to the lieutenant's office, the program office, to finally get this 115 adjudicated, they say, hey man, your name is such and such, right? You sleep on the top bunk. And he said, no. He said, while I'm assigned to the top bunk, I sleep on the bottom bunk, right? And so he, of course, then understands that it's his cellie that is engaged in this freaky behavior. So then when he gets back, he talks to the rest of the bloods and let them know, and then they disciplined the Damu from Dago, right? Of course, now on that discipline, he had to leave. He was whooped out his shoes. He finally stumbled to the guard. They got me. And he was sent on his way, right? Now, another situation I seen was, and the name of this story was called "The Fresno Car Goes Too Far," and it was a cold story that's up. Check that out, man. This dude got disciplined because somebody else told him that he owed the dude who was telling his car, because he was from Fresno. The other dude was a non-affiliate from LA. The non-affiliate is telling the Fresno dudes, your homie owes me money for a cigarette. Now, be it was only $2 or $3, right? And so, long story short, the Fresno car didn't do their due diligence, and they went over there and they whooped the life out of this young cat. They whooped him viciously. About 5 or 6 of them. They whooped him viciously, kicked him and stuff. Now, on a DP, I have never seen a DP where you kicking your homie. You know what I'm saying? Because after this DP, he was allowed to stay, but it was vicious, right? But then come to find out, he didn't even owe the dude. So then what they in turn do, they turn around and then they go whoop the dude from LA, the non-affiliate, who told him that he owed him, because they had some type of transaction going on. But I happen to have a cellie. I happen to have a homie who was a cellie of the dude from Fresno. And he said, no, man, your cellie, they went and talked to him, because I guess after they jumped on the youngster from Fresno, he said, man, go ask my cellie. So his cellie confirmed, no, that he didn't really owe that dude. And so they then went and jumped that dude and whooped him real tough too. So it was a cold situation. Then he ended up going and rushing my homie because he felt my homie gave them some bad information or whatever. It's a intriguing story, man. Go check that story out. The Fresno car goes way too far. So now we getting to me, right? In the course of me doing 24 years, have I ever been disciplined? And the answer is no. I think maybe the only thing I ever done in prison that possibly could have got me a discipline, depending on what homies was on the yard and if this situation had got out. You had a blood dude want to swap girly magazines with me. This is in Salinas Valley, right? And when we exchanged the girly magazines, I then end up letting a homie, Cass from Pomona Necklin, see the magazine. You know what I'm saying? Even though I shouldn't, because it was not my magazine. So me and this dude, we're in the same building. The dude who I swap magazines with, we're in the same building, but different sections, right? So I'm thinking that he's going to hold on to the book a couple of days, right? He was dissatisfied with the book because it was a Playboy Women of Color edition, and the women's in there, they had, they backside was flat as the bunks we were sleeping on. That's not the type of backside my man was interested in seeing. You know what I'm saying? The Damu dude. So he sends somebody else over there to get the book, and I don't have the book, which is a violation. What saved me is in these level 4s and 3s, when you come to the cell, it's custom not to peek directly in the cell. So he spoke through the side, said, "Hey, homie, chill. Old boy wants his book." I then pretended like I was on the toilet to buy myself some time. Then I had somebody get a hold of Cass, who happened to be a porter, go get the magazine, give it back to me. I gave it to the dude. The very next day, the dude came and approached me and asked me, he said, "Hey, chill, let me ask you something, homie." He said, "Man, did you loan my magazine out?" And I lied and I said, "No." That is the only time in prison I could have potentially got into a situation. And to be honest, once again, I felt like a real mark for even having to lie to an individual, because I've always been raised to believe that you only lie to the police. You never lie to another man. And so I was very upset with myself about that. Right now, that situation, like I said, had it got out, he found out that I did give somebody else his book, it could have turned into a situation or whatever, right? Had I had any homies on the yard, right? So that was the only time, right, that I came close to potentially or possibly, could have been disciplined or got myself into a wreck behind my actions. Now, with all that being said, doing time in prison, right, at least for me and for most individuals, if you know how to do time, is relatively easy. A lot of times, the only thing you really can or you really should be getting in trouble to when one of your other homies do something goofy, or somebody in your car does something and you have to represent either for your car or your race. Man, doing time in prison is easier than it seems, right? Be respectful. Don't get into debt. On the streets, I love to gamble. Once I got to prison and I'm seeing that everybody has different characteristics, everybody's makeup is not the same, I stopped gambling because I knew it would lead to something with me and my personality and the personality of other individuals. If I lose gambling, I am going to pay. I've seen a lot of individuals lose and then not want to pay. Me, by the fact that I'm going to pay, I would have been highly offended that someone thinks that they could not pay me, right? And so when you see a situation coming, if you know yourself and you know that this situation will potentially get you in a wreck, it is always wise to do things to alleviate that situation from growing into something bigger, right? So my fix on that was to not gamble. Every now and then I might gamble, very, very rare, but not much. Fast forward to 2005, I get down once again to and that's in that prison where Derek was. This prison is dorm living. So now I'm getting a little loose. I'm getting away from the things I normally don't do. I start gambling. I get into it with an individual. He's upset. He had a lot of ulterior motives against me, and he used this gambling. That we got in. We made a $1 bet on the Lakers game to make it interesting. He wins the bet. I pay him. I give him a box of soap, which was valued at $1. Later on, once I go to mail my legal mail, he's complaining that the box of soap is beat up, and he's not accepting that. Unbeknownst to me at the time, a brother by the name of Tay, dark-skinned dude, maybe about, I want to say 5'10", 5'11", chunky, muscular, waves in his head. I heard he was getting a lot of bread out there at one time from Palo Alto, I believe. Unbeknownst to me, Tay says, hey, man, you making much ado about nothing. Here, take these 5 soups, which is valued at $1. Give me that bar of soap. Now the situation is dead. When I came back from mailing my legal mail, old boy still was tripping. He was huffing and puffing because obviously he had a problem with me. He really didn't care about the dollar. You know what I'm saying? So he attempted to slap me, knock my glasses off. I went and got that thing, and I tried to send him to the individual that created him. You know what I'm saying? And so, but that's all behind $1 gambling, right? So, once again, if you know how to do time, right, you're respectful. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke tobacco. I don't drink coffee. You know what I'm saying? I stayed away from the gambling tables and all that, the dice and all that stuff for the most part. You know, you increase your chances of not getting into a wreck. You know, the most personal incidents that I had in prison came on the basketball court. You know, you're out there playing basketball. Sometimes some individuals take the game more serious than others, right? When I first came to prison in 96, people were very respectful on the basketball court. You know, you had, dudes who was raised in my generation. If they hit you foul, you accidentally slap you in the face. Hey, my bad, homie, your ball, his foul. Later on, dudes came in and they didn't have those same type of characteristics about themselves. Some of these dudes might slap you right across the face and keep playing like they ain't never touch you. So that was where I would have a problem, right? A dude fouling me and not saying nothing. So, and I got into a few incidents that was basketball related, but that's where the majority of my troubles came from. I told you guys about a story. I think it was called My Last Fight in Prison. Came from a basketball game, and that was like maybe a month or so before I was going to the parole board. In hindsight, I had no reason fighting. I'm trying to go seek my freedom, right? But the dude upset me, and I called him the B word with the intention to make him fight. And so we went into the cell and got it in, right? So if you do your time like you are supposed to, right? You follow the rules and regulations, and that's within any car, within any organization, then chances are extremely high you won't have anything to worry about as far as creating a personal problem for yourself. It's not hard, especially when you sitting and you doing time and you seeing all these other people get their heads whooped or whatever. Then you understand what I should do, what I shouldn't do. It has nothing to do about being tough, right? It has nothing to do about being tough. It has something to do about following what's expected to you, because I've seen some of the biggest and some of the baddest get disciplined because no one is bigger than the program. So it has nothing to do with being bad. It has something to do with just following the rules of whatever is expected of you, right? And so no, during the course of my 24 years did I ever get disciplined. Anyway, you already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.